Welcome to The Explainer. Let's just dive right in, shall we? Today we're looking at something absolutely fascinating, the invisible forces literally controlling our wallets. We're going to unpack the social factors behind consumer behavior. It's so easy to think that when we walk into a store or browse online, we're acting completely independently. But the research paints a totally different picture. There's this massive web of social dynamics at play, shaping our preferences before we even reach for our credit cards. So here's a question for you. Did you really choose your last purchase yourself? Kind of challenges your sense of autonomy, doesn't it? The truth is, even though we make the final call individually, we rarely buy things in a vacuum. From the time we're kids, we're interacting with family, friends, society, and those interactions do way more than just shape our personalities. They heavily dictate our buying behavior. Whether you're directly asking a friend for a recommendation or just subtly noticing what a coworker is wearing, we are constantly being influenced. And that brings us right to our core definition. Social factors are basically the influence of people and groups surrounding an individual that affect their buying behavior. These are external influences. Actually, this is exactly why two people with the exact same income and education can make completely different purchasing decisions. It all boils down to the different social groups they belong to. Today, we're going to investigate the four main culprits behind these choices. Section 1. The power of reference groups. So a reference group is defined as a group whose opinions or behavior influence an individual's purchasing decisions. But let's think about why this actually matters. Before we buy something, especially a big-ticket item, we instinctively compare ourselves with others, right? Reference groups are incredibly useful for us because they provide information, they give advice, and crucially, they help us reduce purchase risk. By looking at these groups, we can evaluate products and figure out what the established social norms actually are. There are three main types of reference groups we need to know about. First up, we've got normative reference groups. Think of your family or close friends. Their main influence is establishing values and norms, and we will literally change our behavior just to gain their acceptance. Next, we have comparative reference groups. These are your peers. They provide a standard for comparison, so we look at them to evaluate our own lifestyle choices. And finally, we have indirect or aspirational reference groups. These are the groups you don't belong to yet, but you really want to. They represent a desired social identity, and as consumers, we'll often imitate these admired groups by buying associated products just to express those aspirations. But here's the kicker. Not all groups influence us equally. A few different factors come into play here. First off, product visibility and product importance. If a product is highly visible in public, well, we're way more likely to be influenced by our reference group. Same goes for expensive or high-risk items. We actively seek out more opinions. But it also depends on the consumer's personality, since some folks are just naturally more independent. Plus, we have to weigh the group's credibility and the strength of our relationship with them. Obviously, a trusted close friend is going to have a lot more sway than a random acquaintance. Section 2. Following the opinion leaders. So, what exactly is an opinion leader? Basically, it's someone whose recommendations influence the purchasing decisions of other consumers. But what gives them this superpower? It's their knowledge. It's their experience and expertise. Opinion leaders have incredibly high credibility. They usually have great communication skills, they're super active socially, and they are more than willing to share their experiences about new products. And honestly, marketers absolutely love them because they generate product awareness, wipe out consumer uncertainty, and kickstart that all-important word-of-mouth communication. I do want to pause here for a quick common mistake alert from the source material. It is super easy to confuse reference groups and opinion leaders, but there's a very clear distinction. Reference groups influence us collectively. They act as a whole group. Opinion leaders, on the other hand, whether they're inside or outside of a group, influence us individually through their specific expertise. So just remember, groups influence collectively, while opinion leaders influence individually. Section 3. Family and the life cycle. This family life cycle timeline beautifully maps out how our priorities and our spending patterns radically evolve at each stage of life. When you're young and single, your money is probably going toward education, clothes, the latest gadgets, maybe some travel. But transition to newly married, and suddenly you're buying home furniture, appliances, and life insurance. Then comes the family with young children stage, where the focus pivots heavily to kids' products and healthcare. As those kids grow older, spending shifts again to home improvements and college savings. And finally, we hit the empty nest and retired stages. Here, buying behavior heavily pivots back toward healthcare, financial security, and leisure activities like travel. Basically, your stage in the family life cycle completely dictates your shopping list. Section 4. Roles, status, and society. First up here, let's look at roles. A role is the expected behavior associated with a person's position in society. And what's really fascinating is that you and I aren't just playing one role, we're juggling multiple roles at the exact same time. You might be a parent, an employee, a friend, and a customer, literally all in the same day. And every single one of those specific roles demands completely different purchasing decisions. I mean, the clothes you buy for your role as an employee are definitely going to be different from the stuff you buy for your role as a weekend parent, right? Now, closely tied to roles is status. Status is simply the level of respect, prestige, or social position enjoyed by an individual. So how does this connect to what we buy? Well, consumers very often purchase products specifically to reflect or reinforce their social status. This impacts brand selection, our expectations of product quality, and of course, luxury consumption. Marketers know this inside and out, which is exactly why they explicitly position certain products to perfectly match the desired social status of their target audience. We've covered a ton of ground in this explainer today, navigating through all these subtle forces. So I want to share a really handy memory trick from the source material. It's the perfect way to lock in everything we've just uncovered about these invisible influencers. Enter the R4 framework. That's RFOR. When you need to remember the major social factors dictating consumer behavior, just lean on this mnemonic. R stands for reference groups, those collective influences establishing our norms. F is for family, guiding our purchases through those different life cycle stages. O stands for opinion leaders, the trusted experts who sway our choices. And that final R is for roles and status, which define our societal positions and all the lifestyle purchases that come with them. So why does all this matter to the business world? Consider this huge managerial insight. Modern marketers recognize that consumers trust people more than advertisements. That right there is the crucial takeaway. Recommendations from family, friends, or opinion leaders, they have a massively greater impact than any traditional ad ever could. And that is exactly why successful organizations are investing so heavily right now in relationship marketing, building customer communities, and forming influencer partnerships. They know that credible, word-of-mouth communication is the absolute ultimate driver of sales. Which leaves us with one final kind of provocative thought to end our explainer today. Knowing all of this, understanding the R4 framework and the sheer power of social influence, who is secretly pulling the strings on your next purchase? Is it your family, an aspirational reference group, a trusted opinion leader? The next time you find yourself at the checkout counter, take a quick second to ask yourself exactly how you arrived at that decision. The invisible influencers are always at work. Keep learning, keep questioning, and thanks so much for exploring this with me today.